Hey guys, welcome back. Today I figured that we would go over just some of my favorite tools that I keep on hand. I like to keep lots of tools on hand in my workshop for whatever I need to do. So the first tool I want to talk about here is my Make branded circuit breaker Leatherman Squirt E4. So this is a great tool. I always keep one of these around. Yeah, they don't last too long, but they're a great tool. They have pliers up here on the tip, and they got wire strippers from, well, yeah, honestly, I can use these from about 24 gauge all the way down to about 12 gauge. So, yeah, the smallest is, it's rated for 20 gauge, but it does work for 22 and 24 gauge. And then at the back here, we got a little wire clipper, wire cutter there. So that's a great tool to have. It's got a little Phillips head screwdriver as well as a flathead and bottle opener. So those are useful, and it's got a nice little knife built in. It's also got a file, a coarse and a fine file, both of those. And lastly, it does come with a pair of scissors. However, I have found that the little spring here does tend to break. I've had a couple of these and the spring always ends up breaking. So as you can see, the spring is broken on this one. One of my most used tools of all time. Next up, we have the Klein tools, wire strippers and cutters. These are really good. I've had these for probably about 6 or 7 years now, and they work great. They go from 24 to 32 gauge, American wire gauge. And they also have, again, wire cutters built in. These are really, really good. I've had these for years. They've never let me down. The only thing that has broken on them is this little locking clip here. The end has broken off. It used to be a little bit longer, so it would actually lock it in place. Now it locks and it's kind of open. What are you going to do? But these are also really great. I recommend having a pair of these in your workshop or similar wire strippers. The, multi-tool wire strippers, those work great, but they're not always up to the job. So sometimes you want dedicated wire stripping. And along with these are these guys. So these are Radio Shack brand, obviously. Got these before Radio Shack really went under, but so these are auto strippers. So what they do is you can put a wire in there and you can just strip it. It'll both cut, so pinch down, cut, and strip it at the same time. So if you have a piece of wire and you need to strip it, you just boom, and now it's a stripped piece of wire. It's a lot easier than going in with these guys here and trying to strip it that way. These tend to work for larger gauge wire. After you get below about 20 or so gauge, it starts having trouble stripping wires, which is why I have other strippers on hand. But these are also great. There are lots of makers of these. They're really, really good. I love them. Yeah, so keep those around as well. So next up are these. So these are flush cutters. These are really great. They come in handy both in just regular cutting of soft wire, but really specifically this edge here is ground down flat on the bottom. So they are great for cutting long leads off of circuit boards or anything like that where you need a flush cut against a surface. These work really well, so I recommend keeping a pair of these around. You don't want to cut any kind of steel with these. Any kind of thick wire, steel wire, anything like that, don't do it with these. They're not meant to cut that. But they are great for their main purpose. They're great for their main purpose, which is to cut wires off of circuit boards and other soft wires. So always keep a pair of these around. They're really useful. I love them. So almost down to the end of the clampy tools here. These are Vice Grip branded, actually, needle nose pliers. And normally I haven't had a pair of needle nose pliers like this where they have the little gearing there to give you even more gripping power when you bite down. These are really nice. I got these about a year ago, and always keep a pair of needle nose pliers around. These are actually kind of large especially for small electronics work. These are really an essential tool for really any workshop. It doesn't matter if you're electronics, woodworking, metalworking, needle nose pliers are always a must. Along with needle nose pliers, you should always keep a pair of vice grips around. These are really good. They're cheap. They're not amazing. You could see that they're not incredibly tooled there, but they're great tools. I love them. I have a few different sizes. Keep them around. Great tools. Duct tape. I am probably one of the biggest fans of duct tape around. I prefer the Nashua brand. Nashua makes great duct tape, way stickier and better than any other brand I've ever used. I personally use the 357 premium grade. They also have lower grades. It is actually fabric rather than a lot of the duct tape that you find cheaply that's just kind of an embossed tape. This actually is a woven fabric tape, so this will hold a lot better than your cheaper duct tapes out there. Really, really good. I always keep at least 2 or 3 spare rolls of this around. I use it all the time. Another staple to have in any workshop is a good tape roll. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. Just have a tape rule on hand. Always useful. A little bit more specialized, but very, very useful in any sort of home machine or electronics shop is a set of digital calipers. So these will measure both in millimeters and inches, and they go down to thousandths. These are really only accurate to about 5 thousandths of an inch. So not incredibly accurate, but great tool to have on hand. This is a large set. This is a foot. I also have a 8-inch and a 6-inch set of these. Really, really important, especially if you're doing any small machining or 3D printing or anything like that. Keep a set of these on hand. Really great tools. I also always keep a rotary tool wherever I am, well, in my workshops. This is actually a Proxxon rotary tool. This is like a Dremel basically, but it's much, much sturdier built. This thing, it's got a nice fine control from 5 to 20,000 RPM. It's got a great bearing set in here. I've had this for 5 or 6 years, never had a problem with it. Always runs great. Proxxon also makes a lot of mini tools. They make mini drill presses, they make mini lathes and CNC machines. I personally have both the mini rotary tool, this guy, and the mini jeweler's drill press. And I use the drill press, I don't actually have it here with me today, but I use the drill press for drilling out PCB holes on custom boards that I build. So I like Proxxon. They're a good company, really sturdy tools. Yeah, always keep a rotary tool on hand if it's Dremel, whatever you have, but these are really useful. I also have a really good set of 54-bit driver kit, and this is great. It's the iFixit set, so you guys have probably heard of iFixit. If not, check them out. They have really great teardown guides and really great tool sets. So this has everything from flatheads, square heads, Phillips, hex bits, Torx, and this set also includes an iPhone SIM chip remover bit and a iPhone that pentalobe screw. This has got a bit for that in here, and for the newer Macs that include the pentalobe screws as well. These are really great, really good bit driver set. Then we got the 2 electronic bits here. So I have an X-Tech multimeter, EX520. I've had this multimeter for a good, probably 10 years now. and I've only replaced the batteries maybe twice in that 10-year time. It's got down to the microamp measurement level, milliamps and up to 10 amps. All your standard voltage, AC, DC, resistance, capacitance, diode measurement. Yeah, it's a great multimeter. I love it. It's got a nice big, easy to read display. Yeah, I keep a multimeter around. You should always have, anytime you're doing electronics work, you should always have a multimeter on hand to diagnose your circuits, check continuity. It's a great tool to have on hand. The other piece of electronics that I keep on hand, this is a Seed Studio DSO Nano. I got this a few years ago. I think they have newer versions. This is the V2, I believe. And this is a mini scope, a mini oscilloscope. Really, really great, tiny little oscilloscope. It's not going to be great if any of you guys are out there are real analog electronics people. This is not the scope for you. But if you're like me and most of your work is digital and occasionally you have some analog work to deal with, great little scope to have on hand, diagnose circuits, and it's tiny. It's also open source, so you can actually upload your own firmware onto this and do whatever you want with it. It's just, I think it's got an STM32 microcontroller in there running the whole thing. Between these, my scope here and my multimeter, I really have no need for any other tools or any other electronics tools for diagnosing circuitry. These two are great to have. So close to the end here, I always like to have a loop on hand. So there's a little magnifying loop here. It's a sensor scope. It's a loop built for looking at camera sensors. So this actually, the end here, fits into a DSLR camera and is focused for the correct distance to focus on a sensor. It's got LED light on it, so you can really light up whatever you're looking at. Makes everything a lot easier to see. I'm sure if you guys have ever used the loop before, it's always dim and it's hard to kind of see what's going on. So I like to keep this around. Lights everything up nice. Really great tool. So not exactly a tool, pure acetone here. Acetone is a great thing to keep around. It's great at removing things. Along with that, not exactly a tool, but the classic WD-40 is great to have on hand. Always keep a bottle of it wherever you are. This is great because it's got both the spray nozzle as well as this little flip tube here, so you can really precisely aim where you want to shoot it. I always like to keep a set of forceps on hand, so I'm not so much of a fan of the third hand tool. It just honestly gets in the way, so I keep forceps on hand, and they're great. For me, I use them just like third hands. I just snap whatever it is, put it down on the table, and if I'm soldering, I can solder it. It's got a little lip up here, so it can kind of hold something off the table while I'm soldering it. Just really good to hold small things in place. I always keep a pair of these on hand. Great tools, love them, keeps them around. So yeah, that's my collection of tools. These are all really useful to have, and with the exception of the multimeter and the oscilloscope, the exception of the oscilloscope and the multimeter, they're all relatively cheap. You can probably get yourself set up pretty well for about $80 to $100 with all of the tools that you'll need for basically any project. If you have any suggestions of tools that I should have, let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this and tool reviews. See you guys later.